how do we improve the content of theological academic books that are published in Africa, and how do we help the important voices to be heard? I think there are many ways in which all of that can be addressed. The first thing is, in terms of the quality of writing, I think there are many who have written books, and because of the lack of editorial infrastructure, the book goes out and the language might be clear to an East African, because in East Africa we speak in a certain way, but when it goes to West Africa or goes to to the US or goes to some place in Europe, the book will be dismissed as this book, the sentences don't even hold together. But an East African reading that will completely understand it. So I think one of the things that I think theologians need to do, and by theologian, anyone who's done a graduate degree and you've done a thesis or you've done something, you are now a theologian, is to improve on that work. And one of the things that we've done as Africa Theological Network Press is to bring together editors, people who do copy editing, and say, so what is the issue? What is the issue here? How can we make people write clearly? Now, we don't want them to write like like someone who they are not. We don't want you to write like a Scotsman or like an American or a Canadian. No, that's not what we want. We want you to write as a Kenyan, as a Ugandan, as a Zambian, as a Egyptian, as someone from Cameroon. We want you to write like one of those, like where you come from, preserving your identity, but write clearly. And so editorial infrastructure is what is required to do that, so that we do as good a job of making you clear. So that's one thing that can be done. Because then when that happens, then the value of the writing will come out. It will become self-evident, because the things that make it unclear have been removed, so that now the depth of thinking comes out. We have a long trajectory of or history of scholars, the Mbitis of the day, Jean-Marc Ella, we have Laurenti Magesa, we have all those people who reflect deeply. We have another generation, Stan Chuilo, we have Orobato, we have Wanjiro Gitau. We have people writing. And so for many of those that I've mentioned, have invested a lot of time to make their writing really clear and so on. And for an interesting thing, the likes of Emmanuel Katongole and so on have the benefit of being in institutions and teaching in institutions that give them time to focus on that. And that is something that we don't have a lot of here in Africa, and will not have for a while. And so for those of us who are on the continent, we do what we can. Use the time that you have. It's a big responsibility. It can be done. I'm a witness. God has been faithful. I was able to write an academic book. It was a big project. It took a lot of time. But then again, it just has to be done. It's just devote yourself, and there are resources out there that can be brought together and that I had access to either online or through people. And some of those resources that have been made available online for free, we have put them again in Africa Theological Network Press, where we say, if you need those kinds of resources that tell you how do you structure your book, how do you put together a book manuscript for a publisher to look at so they can know whether they can publish it or not, what are publishers looking for, all those things, we put those on our website, so that those resources become immediately available. You don't have to go look for them in other places. So that's a second myth. But I think there's a third way we can make the theology come out more clearly. And that is to listen and reflect, and to become more, to begin to think of those who come afterwards, and to begin to think about those who are around the world, and begin to write what we can in whichever way. Start from where we are. Whether it is your sermons, when you preach your sermon, nowadays we can record them. When you record them, put them on YouTube. Or get, as a pastor, if you're a pastor and you do your sermons, your sermon notes, give someone your sermon notes, and get someone to watch the YouTube, video or live cast of what you've done, and write it down. When you do a sermon series with 8 sermons, write them down, put them into a book, let it help your people. For other pastors, we think about discipleship. Discipleship is a big thing on the continent of Africa. Begin to codify, write down those things, and share them with others. And people are already doing that. Whatever teaching you have, begin to write it down. And after you write it down, look at it and say, how can this help someone who's not in the continent, or someone who 3 generations from us, our children's children. And thinking like that is going to help us to begin to, quote unquote, deepen our theology. I think the last thing I want to say is, I think the criticism for Africans has always been that we are not deep enough. And I've quoted that. It was quoted by a theologian some years back in the 1970s. He wrote a book, Theological Pitfalls of the Church in Africa. I think that's the title, written in 1977. I think it was published in 1977. Christian in Africa, there are many issues with Christianity in Africa. And it is true, there are many issues of Christianity in Africa, theological issues of Christianity in Africa, as there are in other parts of the world. But I think one of the greatest service that we can do ourselves as African theologians is to reorient ourselves to the source of our faith, and that is Christ. I think if we indeed believe that Christ incarnated for the purposes of bringing redemption for all humankind, then we are in there as well. If we do believe that the Holy Spirit, as it says in the New Testament, is the one who gives us utterance and reminds us the things that Christ has taught, the Holy Spirit is not does not discriminate, and so we need to begin to believe in ourselves a lot more as Africans, and begin to entrust ourselves to that Holy Spirit to give us words to share with one another and to share with those who come after us. There is no one who has a monopoly on the depth and the immediacy and the grasping the wealth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And there's nothing that prevents us as Africans from being able to understand, connect with, and be able to communicate Christ in that sort of way. Acts 17, the Apostle Paul says, God put us in different contexts, and read to me in here, Africa as well, so that we could seek Christ and find him. There are those who have sought Christ, in other contexts as well, and they have found him, and they have written about him, and we can do that as well.